Rabbi Shefa Gold. I live in the mountains of New Mexico, and I travel the world, um, opening up sacred texts through the practice of chant. That's my favorite things to do, and I do it because there are these hidden treasures that want to be unlocked, and I know some of the secrets of music, having been a musician all my life. And so I take those secrets of music and then bring them to the sacred texts so that I can unlock it and you know, open up its healing power and magic.
Um, and that opened up I thought of like a dozen follow-up questions just for that. I'm going to dump all of them and just go with this one. I'm curious, what first, you talked about opening things, what first opened chanting in you?
Well, opening chanting. Well, when I went to rabbinical school, and there's a long story of how I got to rabbinical school, which really had to do with falling in love with God and wanting to be able to express that love in a generous way. But I was really overwhelmed by the voluminous, the amount of texts that I had inherited, and when there's so much words, you tend to stay on the surface of things. But I discovered that if I just take one little phrase at a time, that phrase can become a portal, and a portal to a different state of consciousness. And what I'm interested in is how my how to rewire my brain, really, through experiencing different states of consciousness, to ask the question: how does this passing mental state become a lasting neural trait? And that's like a question that I got from a neuropsychologist named Rick Hansen, who really asked that question, because we experience different states all the time, but it might just skim over the surface and not really change who we are. And I'm interested in transformation, and transformation specifically of how to open my heart and live with an open heart, and find my connection to unity consciousness.
Can I ask, you mentioned so maybe there's a story in rabbinic school, but the rabbinic tradition is jammed full. I use the nice word voluminous. It's jammed full of words and texts, and not just that, legalese and deeply intellectual arguments is like this primary pathway in Judaism to trying to connect to God and practice. But then you mentioned maybe looking for a different space or a different approach to that. So what was your experience coming into that voluminous wealth of Jewish texts, and how does what you do maybe a little different than the average rabbi approaching that?
Yeah. It's one pathway, is through the intellect. And I really, understood my path is that I'm smart, but I don't, my life's purpose isn't just to get smarter. And it's really a more heart-centered, embodied path. So I kind of have to, when I was in rabbinical school, I had to prove that I was smart, that I could that I could play the game of texts. I could do that. But that's not really where I wanted to live my life. I wanted to live my life as a heart-centered, and to be on an exploration, on an adventure of consciousness, which is, for me, is what's fundamental in my life, and really to open to God, the great mystery, and use what I've inherited in order to do that. And so it's not so much important to me what the text necessarily means to all the people who have it, I could take into account what it means, but I want to know what it's good for, what's how I can repurpose that text in order to, walk the path of love.
What happens inside you when you chant? when you first encountered this and when you first started playing with music or first started thinking about music as a pathway to God, what's happening inside you?
Well, I'll say a sacred text. I began with the text, like open up the prayer book and say the first thing it says Modani lifanecha, and so which is like it just means thank you, God, really. But if I look at the words, it has like some secrets right inside the words. It says, it really means I gratefully acknowledge your face. And so I think like, oh, the purpose of this text is to be able to encounter the world as the face of God. And so it's not enough to know that in my head. I want to be able to experience it. And so that I begin playing with melody and with intention, and so a practice then emerges. It's not a song; it's a practice, meaning that it is a journey from one state to another, and I want to come into the place of gratefulness, but I want to. But gratefulness is a very large kind of treasure that I want to be able to open. So the practice that emerged, this was many years ago, was taking that phrase and singing it 3 times. One time being grateful for the face of God in the past, of seeing my life, everything I've lived so far, as the face of God, as a mystery that has brought me to this moment. And then the second time of the chant, I opened to the possibility of being grateful for what's coming to me, to sort of trust it and say, like, thank you for whatever you want to give to me, life, and come into gratefulness in advance, really. And then the third time I chanted is a kind of a deep bow to this moment. And how do I kind of realize in this moment is the only thing there is, and how can I bow in gratefulness to this moment and understand it as the face of God, and knowing that once I know that the face of God is there, I have to unmask it and not be fooled by all of the disguises. Right? And so, if you want, I can chant this chant that was like I wrote a long time ago, and it became a kind of also a bowing practice where I would bow to the past, bow to the future, and then bow to the present moment. And by bowing is like an ancient technology, a spiritual technology that kind of allows the heart to be higher than the head, really. And acknowledges, sort of like brings me into a place of humility. So I began chanting this. I'd say, Modani lifanecha, bowing to my past, and then opening to the future, saying thank you. Modani lifanecha, and then to this very moment, Modani lifanecha. Just do it once more. Modani lifanecha, Modani lifanecha, Modani lifanecha. So I might chant that for a long time, And then in the silence after the chant, what I notice is there's kind of a portal that I can walk through and find myself in some different state of consciousness. And then I bring my awareness to that state. I'm like, oh, this is gratefulness. This is, this is an acknowledgement of the mystery. And then staying in the silence afterwards allows me to kind of anchor that state inside me, so that I have access to it when I need it.
This goes back to the same, I think the same question before. There's this huge volume of Jewish texts, and even just the weekday or the Shabbat morning or afternoon or evening prayers are full of prayers and full of possible stances and modes and mindsets. So Modeh Ani is like one of the very first things you might say in the morning. But then if you're going to have a longer prayer experience, like there's just dozens and dozens of prayers you're going to say. Do those mindsets all conflict? And so it's like the normal service is too much, and you find, no, I like to focus on one thing. Like today I'm going to focus on gratitude.
Well, this is my personal practice.
Yeah.
It's not about like what I do in front of a congregation necessarily to go through a service. There's a different method that I use in order to do that, to look at the different parts of the service and what the function is of that, and then choosing kind of key phrases that'll take me on a journey of transformation. That's how I see a service. But what I want to do is charge up the words in my own practice. And then when I come to them in a service, I will have that inside me. It will light up with all of the practice that I have like invested into that phrase. But it's not just the words of the prayer book. It's also, what I discovered is the Song of Songs is kind of my central text, because it helps me to walk on the path of love. I mean, since I was a little girl, I'd hear the words of like, you shall love God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. And I'd be like, okay, well, how do I do that? And then, or you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Yeah, and how do I do that? And then you shall love the stranger. Like, these are like the core principles of Judaism, which is love. But when I really discovered the Song of Songs, it became kind of a guidebook for me of like, how do I love? And all the mystics have taken the Song of Songs and made it their central text. And it's called the Holy of Holies. It belongs at the center of the tradition, because learning how to love and be loved is like, that's why we're here. That's the transformative force of the universe that we want to activate in us. So each week there's so I divided the Song of Songs into 52 different parshiot sections, and each week I receive just a few lines, and then ask this question of like, not just what does it mean, but how do I live it? So I thought like I would share with you like this week's and I call this practice love at the center. It's like, how do you bring love at the center of your life? And the Song of Songs is kind of shows you how. So this week the words from the Song of Songs that are this week's parsha says, I am the rose of Sharon and the lily of the valley. Like a lily among the thorns, so is my beloved among the young women. So as I experience that and say, okay, it's beautiful, but how do I live it? then a practice emerges for me. And the practice is a practice that I call rooting down and blossoming forth, or blossoming forth and rooting down. So, Ani Chavatzelet HaSharon is about the blossoming that I need to do in my life, the finding of my unique color and fragrance and bringing it to the world. And Shoshanat Amakim is like a code word that means the depths. It's like, how do I root down into my depths? Because the word for valley is also the word for the deeps, the deep places. And so it's a kind of a secret instruction that says, oh, in order to blossom forth, you have to root down and find, your ground, the ground of being, your lineage, your, what nourishes you, what holds you. And so when I chant it, that's what I'm doing. I'm doing both of those, blossoming forth and rooting down.
Why do you think the Song of Songs was a gateway, or a little jewel in there that shined the brightest for you?
Well, the story about how the Song of Songs became part of the canon is that, it was almost going to get thrown out, and Rabbi Shefa saved it and said, no, all the books of Torah are holy, but the Song of Songs is the Holy of Holies. And the Holy of Holies means it's at the center. That's kind of what that means. And he said, had the Torah not been given, we could live our lives by the Song of Songs. And the Song of Songs is all about, it's a love story, but it's not a linear love story. It's like each word of the song has like a secret buried in it, and as a chanter, I unlock that secret through the chanting practice, which is embodying it. And often I'll hold a question and lay it on the altar of the chant, so that as I'm chanting, all the energy that I'm creating with the chant is being, focused on like finding the answer to that question. And that's what, happens in the silence. So every chant, the anatomy of a chant kind of has three parts of like, there's an intention of why I'm doing it. And then the chant itself, which I want to pour everything I have into it. And then the silence afterwards, where the benefit of the chant kind of pours into me if I, create that space for it to happen. And then the next time I chant it, I'll kind of draw on that benefit and begin, and keep building the intention and the intensity of it.
So that's fascinating. It makes me think of like the way you see magic spells or binding rituals in books or movies, where a repetition of this thing over, as you said, you called it charging. Like, feel like you're charging that chant. Like, first it's lower light and then higher intensity, and every time you revisit it, you do feel like when you come back, some of that energy you left there from a day or a week, or like in the case of your parashah, like, it's been a whole year since I looked at these two lines. But when you come back to it, you come back and you feel like there's something, there's still energy in those words because you put it there when you were last touched it.
Right. And you're planting all the texts inside you, and then they're there, so and when you marry a text to a melody, that melody stays inside you. And so like might wake up one day with a melody and say, oh, what's that? That's a message from my soul. These are the words that I need to be able to hear today. So every image in the Song of Songs, has power, really. Like, so, the image of of this week's parsha of these flowers, flowers are part of in the prophetic tradition. They have a kind of a resonance. In Isaiah and Hosea, these, the idea is like the idea of blossoming forth, because we're a desert people, the flower really holds this kind of prophetic power of of possibility, of beauty. And the Song of Songs sets me on a path of beauty, the beauty way is what the Navajo call it. And but it's a reminder that I also need to be able to find this. I can't just blossom forth. I have to root myself down into these depths, and those. And so it's just very rich, So like this week, that's what I'm focused on. So I'm focused on this practice this week, and I can share it with you if you like. And
Sure.
sometimes what I do is before I do this practice, I'll do a breathing practice where I breathe into my heart, and then I'll root down and send the breath down into my depths, or into the depths of the earth. And then I'll breathe in from those depths back into my heart. And on the next exhale, I'll blossom forth, send that breath out as my blossom. And then feel the light and bring that light back into my heart. So that's so I might do that for a while before I even begin to chant. And then that kind of sets the tone for the chant. And then I get these magic words, plant them inside me through melody, through repetition, through the rhythm of it. So it goes like this. Ani kavatzelet Hashirim shoshanot hamati. 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 So I might end with the breath again, breathing into the heart, rooting down, sending the breath down into the earth, breathing up into the heart, bringing all of that nurturance into me, and then blossoming forth on the exhale, feeling the light and taking it in on the inhale back into my heart. So if I spend a week doing that practice, that phrase, just becomes this powerful impetus and inspiration to be able to, to live my life both rooted and expressive, I guess.
What changes when you take this personal practice? I think you hinted at it when I said, the prayer service is full of all these prayers. And you hit, I've charged some of those things previously, and we're all going to take this journey. How does it change when you're in a room, when people chant together? How is that different or the same to when you chant in a solitary way by yourself?
It's the group really amplifies the energy, and that's why I love to teach retreats where we're just chanting all week and just lifting each other up in it, and the other thing is that I work with harmony, and which adds another dimension to the practice, and so different harmonies will pull different strings in my heart, really, and so to have a full practice, you also need your individual practice. You need to be able to be kind of alone with God on a journey of exploration, trying it slow, trying it fast, trying it soft, trying out different tones, exploring the magic of it. And then whatever I learn, then I bring to the group that I'm chanting with, and then we really lift each other up and amplify the power of the chant. Yeah, so you need both, and I'm a big believer in the practice of retreat, so that you can to be able to do it for a long time. I have a daily practice, but sometimes I have a lot of other things to do also, so I can't do that all day. But on retreat, I can do it all day, and it's and it's so much fun. And one of the reasons I chant is because it's so much fun. And if you have a practice that's so much fun and so beautiful, you're going to do it. You're going to do it whenever you can. You're going to do it every day.
Is that what is at the edge? And maybe this happens, I don't know, this could be in your solitary practice or the group practice. What is kind of at the edge of your practice, or the places where the weird places where experimentation or the rough edges of chanting are appearing for you?
Well, it's a process. I mean, I just sort of see it as a process. I'm like the last year, I've been exploring the Psalms, and I decided, that one of the things that I do is I make apps for spiritual practice. So I have an app called the Flavors of Gratefulness, which has 135 different melodies for that Moda Ani prayer. I have an app called Flavors of Praise that has I think 81 different melodies for Hallelujah, because I feel like it's a very powerful word to chant. And so I'm always finding new melodies for it. And I have an app that's flavors of that's called Love at the Center, which is how you live your life by the Song of Songs, where each week you have a new parsha of the Song of Songs and a question to contemplate. And so that's the third app. And then the fourth app that's coming out soon is called The Magic and the Medicine of the Psalms. So I spent the last year creating a practice for every one of the 150 Psalms, and sometimes more than one practice, so that it was kind of like a year of excavation, of diving into the Psalm, even the Psalms that I really don't like, diving in and saying oh, there must be a treasure here somewhere, and finding it and lifting it up and turning it into a useful practice. And so the app, which is coming out in a couple of weeks, is gonna you can actually spin a thing, like a divination thing. What's my medicine for today? And you can get your what the psalm is. And
so you get the magic 8-ball of the Psalms.
Yeah,
which psalm?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. And you could look at the whole psalm, but you can also just take that one phrase and chant it. And when I work with my students, we'll chant these sacred words, and then we'll do an inquiry afterwards to say oh, what's the medicine here? What is the medicine? And sometimes you don't even know you have a disease until you begin bringing the medicine, So I talked to one of my students yesterday, and she said, I chanted this chant, and it kind of illuminated this difficulty inside me, which is a deep belief that I don't matter. And so that understanding of the medicine that we brought with the chant was illuminating that kind of a disease in her. And so now, as she steps onto a path of healing that place in her, it's it's like, how do I remember that I am integral to the whole universe? That's just sort of like a diagnosis that the chant, brought to her. And sometimes the chant will contradict something inside us, and through that contradiction, show us the places that we need to heal.
I wanted to, so you, chanting has a long and rich tradition in many other faith traditions. So it's a pinnacle in some other ones. It's a huge part of what happens. And Judaism has its trope chanting, and Judaism has its niguns and its melodies. But did chanting feel like something that developed in you as a Jew intuitively, instinctively, or did you glom onto a particular lineage? You're like, I heard about people used to do this, or I saw other Jews doing this. So are you a Jewish lineage, or do you feel like, no, my thing comes out of my own experience?
It was really like a survival kind of thing for me, because I was overwhelmed by so many words. It's not how I live. Like, if I say so many words, just forget it. I'm not gonna. It's not going to be compelling for me. So that kind of feeling of like, oh, what's this? This one phrase could be a portal. And so the practice developed, because I remember being in my first year of rabbinical school, I went on a retreat, and the teacher, and I was so overwhelmed, the teacher kind of took pity on me, and he said, Shefa, you could just take one thing at a time, one little thing at a time. And it was so freeing for me to realize, like, I didn't have to try to like swallow the whole thing. You just take one little thing at a time. I could spend my whole life doing that and never run out.
Yeah.
And it became a very rich path of both, exploration and nourishment and challenge, and falling in love, with the words, and understanding that these words, have lots of different meanings. There's, when they say 70 different meanings, they mean it's infinite number of meanings, and I could play with them, and my ancestors played with them too. So, and I could make midrash. I could sort of find the where is this taking me? What door is it opening for me? And how do I walk through that door?
Have any of the other chanters or contemplatives or spiritual seekers you've run into tried to drag you to another tradition? Buddhists do a lot with chanting, and what you're talking about, being in the moment, come to Buddhism or whatever else. The Sufis, we spin with the dervishes, we spin in circles, and we lose ourselves in the sound of this and the movement of our bodies. Come try this out. Or did you say, no, I like the Hebrew and I like the Jewish approach to this?
I don't say no. I say, I learn from everyone. I just got back from India, and I chanted Om Namah Shivaya with, and I, when I opened to their kind of a worship of the sacred feminine, it just stirred in me a love of Shabbat. It's like we're all doing the same thing, and so every other tradition that I encounter just shines like a light on my Jewish practice, and bring, and makes it more precious. But I like to learn from everyone. And Judaism, that's what makes it a living tradition, because it's always been permeable in the places that it's been. It's always been influenced by other. And it's not syncretism. It is just like a kind of a permeability, and from a mystic's point of view, it's the realization that we're all doing the same thing, and we have different colors and styles and flavors of it. So I do a lot of interfaith kind of work where I meet with other mystics, really, who, and we experience each other's traditions, just so that you can take the form, because the form is not the most important thing. It's where the form is going to take you beyond the forms. So I'm not in love with Judaism. I'm in love with God. And Judaism is like an amazing set of forms that help me to express that love and explore that love and deep and be able to deepen what's already in me or to uncover what's there.
What are the barriers? I see two primary barriers to prayer chanting that's in Hebrew is some people aren't comfortable with Hebrew and some people don't know what the words mean. And then the other side, I see this too, helping with services. There are people who love the music, but they're afraid to sing out loud because I've been told I'm a bad singer. I've been told I'm tone deaf. I know I can't sing. When I sing, everybody runs out of the room. So Hebrew and music, tell me how, if you ever encounter those barriers from participants, how you soften or how you think about those barriers.
Yeah, no, I think that's part of what my job is, really.
Okay.
To meet those challenges. And it's, I think with the Hebrew is like, that's why I take just, a few words at a time and to be able to share this love of those words, like, wow, and that it's different. Singing Hebrew is a magic language. It is these are incantations. They affect us energetically, and so just kind of turning people on to the magic of it and saying, let's take just a few words at a time and get them inside us. And it doesn't matter. I mean, it's like, and the most important thing is your intention. So even if you don't get it exactly right, the intention of these words and the beauty of these words and their power, and it's just like, let's fall in love together with with the work, and then with the healing that place of where music is. Chanting is different than singing, and some people who are good singers cannot chant because they're very attached to the outer form of it, and the inner dimensions of it are not are not easy for them. So when I first started chanting, I thought that cantor, like all the cantors in the world, would be really interested in this.
Yeah,
and it wasn't. They weren't. There was a lot of resistance because they're what they learn in their training is to focus on the outer sound, and so teaching cantors how to chant became like to say, like, yes, the outer sound is one dimension of the practice, but where is it coming from inside you? How do you open up their own depths? How does that kavanah, this intention, which is the quality of the direction of your heart, how can you how can you express that? And so it's and even with singers, like I've worked with singers to try to like make the transition into becoming a chanter. And then the truth is that I've worked with people for a long time who began and couldn't and were like tone deaf.
Yeah.
And after years of chanting, it's that something got healed. Which is maybe some connection with their own, connection between the ear and the body. It got healed, and some of those people are now singing in tune. And
they're singing whatever notes that we say they're supposed to sing. Those are the ones.
And it's glorious to see that transformation. It's just, and it just comes with practice. Like I have faith in that process of attuning to a melody. Yeah.
And like some of the cantors or some of the musicians who, again, they perfect their sense, they perfect their rhythm, they perfect their tone, they perfect their voice, and it really rattles them to hear things offbeat, off tone, wrong dynamic. It hurts them because they've sort of fine tuned their aesthetic. So I could see how some of them may really struggle with no, we're going to be more in the body. We're going to be less concerned about the output of what we're putting out.
Well, I mean, the musicality comes
Okay.
through doing it. It's like, it's not that it's not important, but it's a process of getting there and not being fixated on it. You know, like to trust the process that musicality arrives with enough practice.
Yeah.
And
I'm going to be talking to another rabbi sometime in the next couple months, and he's kind of thinking about what does God mean to people when they say it. And you said kind of at the beginning of this conversation, in the middle of this conversation, and just a few minutes ago, again, you're in love with God. So when somebody asks, who are you talking about? Or what do you mean, Rabbi Gold, when you say God and the God you're in love with? What God is that? Tell me about it.
yeah, the best answer is I don't know.
Okay. That's my favorite answer too.
But I say one of the names for God that I have is the great mystery. Like there's so many things I do know and I don't. And entering into this not knowing place and a place of wonder and awe and kind of expanding into a big question and standing before a mystery. It's realizing that I don't know, and from that place of not knowing, there is infinite potential, and it's more like an experience. God is more like an experience for me, where I surrender everything I do know, and I open up to the vastness, that is holding us all. And I think of there's this duality that we live in of good and bad, but then there's this essential goodness that holds it all, and that's God for me. And what I notice is that when I address God as you, I also feel addressed by God, and that becomes my primary relationship. And when I'm in that relationship, I am just connected and filled up, and then the world gets the overflow. Like the only thing I want to give to anyone is the overflow of that connection. Otherwise, it's like a recipe for burnout if you think you're trying to give from this little self that you are.
So you're sensitive to the fact that you're not trying to scoop water out of your bucket. You're like, no, whatever comes, I just try to open myself so the water pours into my bucket and falls off the sides.
My responsibility is to fill up with God.
Okay.
That's my responsibility. And if I do that, the overflow happens. And it happens in every relationship. It happens in my life of service. I don't want to do anything out of obligation. But one of the central images is the building of the Mishkan, the sanctuary in the wilderness. And at a certain point in my life, I realized that was my life purpose, is to build a Mishkan, and which means to build the structures through which this God flow can happen. And I build it inside me as my inner life. I build the Mishkan of the heart. I build the Mishkan of the body, of knowing my body as holy. And I build the Mishkan of my energy field, my presence. And then there's a mishkan of every relationship when I know that there's a mystery between us, and I'm inviting that mystery in. And then there's a mishkan of like every group that I'm with, and and ultimately of the world. But I'm building that mishkan with, with all my sense of beauty and love and structure. I'm building the mishkan, and if I do that, the flow happens.
Yeah.
Right. But so it's a covenantal kind of a relationship that God says, if you build it, they will come. It will happen.
Is there something about the temporary aspect of the Mishkan that these two most important buildings in like Torah are the Mishkan and the temple? Bum, bum, bum. And you're like, no, I lean toward the Mishkan. Something about that temporary, take it down, put it up, take it down, put it up. Or are you a Mishkan person versus a temple person if you have to set up some binary?
Well, I hate to tell you, but the temple was also kind of temporary too, but
also true.
But I like the portability of it.
The portability of it, yeah.
Yes, it's like it goes wherever where it takes it bring it with me through the wilderness.
Yeah,
it's not, and but the Mishkan is built from our generosity, not from our obligation. And so that's how I want my practice to be. I want to build my practice, and so every chant is a Mishkan. I'm building that chant with everything I know about music and Hebrew and everything. I'm building that a mishkan, and then in the silence afterwards, I can sense that like I'm inviting God's presence into that mishkan that I just built.
You seem very sensitive to kind of trying to put yourself in the moment. So I guess my last question is, what are you aware of yourself right now as we end this conversation?
What am I aware of myself? Oh, well, it's fun to meet you.
Oh, thanks.
That's the first thing. I guess, I guess what I'm aware of is like reminding myself how simple it is. That even though I make it so complicated, it's also there's also this simplicity to it that really appeals to me. That and a kind of a sense of persistence in it. Like sometimes I'll sing a hallelujah, and it won't be till 10 minutes into the hallelujah that the shift can happen. So if I stop at 5 minutes, it's not, that hallelujah won't work really. But I have this confidence. It's like if I do this long enough, something shifts in me, and that's, I think, what I want to communicate is that kind of faith in repetition, in deepening. And every time when I'm chanting, every time that chant comes around again, it's a new thing. And sometimes I'll look inside myself and say, who's not chanting? There's like a whole parliament of personality in there that's like some parts of me are, pulled back. How do I bring the whole of me into it? And so it becomes a healing practice of bringing my wholeness and to the practice. But again, it's I have faith in the process, and I'm so and it makes me so grateful for my inheritance, but also knowing that my inheritance is the raw material. Now I have to work it. I have to refine it. I have to interpret it. I have to play with that,
The Jews always feeling responsibility. I can't just sit here and just wait for God to show up. I have to put in some work here to make this possible.
No, I have to play.
Oh, you have to play. Don't make it work. Play. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're responsible for play. Yes.
Yeah. Well, to show up. I want to
To
show
show up.
up.
Okay.
I want to meet it. I want to meet
Yeah.
it. And then see what's there and stay curious and allow my creativity to, to blossom forth.
People are smart and they can go online and figure out where you are. But in general, if someone hears you talking about anything in your practice or anything in the work you do in the Jewish world or anything in chanting, where do you point them? So you tell people, oh, you should go look at this, or you should read this or watch this. Where do you tell people to go?
Well, I did write a book about chanting. It's called The Magic of Hebrew Chant, which really lays out some of the theory of chant, if you're interested in that. And in the experience of it, I teach a class online every week that's free, and it's called Kazum. And then I teach retreats, and just like when I'm get invited different places. So there's a schedule on my website, and I'm also a spiritual director. So there's lots of ways in. But I feel like what I want people to know is that my core practice is not chanting. My core practice is dveikut, is connection to the oneness, and the chanting is what helps me to be able to live my life in dveikut, in connection.